Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily update for December 23rd, 2021. Let me begin with an administrative note. There will be no update tomorrow as December 24th is Christmas in Germany. But I'll be back again next week. And in the meantime, what I'm going to present to you today, I urge you to think about, to do some serious reflection over the next couple of days, because we're in an extremely dangerous strategic situation, which is driven by the bankruptcy of the transatlantic system, a moral financial bankruptcy. And it requires a dramatic change, which depends on the population not tolerating the kind of lies and psychological warfare which we've been hit with. Now, just a couple of strategic updates on leading stories. Let's begin with the Russia-Ukraine NATO crisis. Putin was very active yesterday. He had, in the last 2 days, he's spoken with Prime Minister Modi of India, President Macron of France, the new Chancellor of Germany, Scholz. And what he said in all of these discussions is that Russia is serious about its security concerns. He said, "Don't cross our red lines. Russia cannot allow NATO military forces, advanced weaponry, and nuclear weapons to be placed on the Russian border." And this is what NATO has been moving towards, and increasing the number of troops and the presence on the very border of the Russian Republic. He said, "We're not making ultimatums. But if you do not negotiate seriously, we will act to defend our nation in a tough manner." He said they, referring to the U.S., do what they want, but now they're doing it in Ukraine, the doorstep of our home. We simply have nowhere to retreat further. And again, he said, this is no ultimatum. Quote, "We want to use diplomatic and political means to resolve problems through clearly formulated legal guarantees." This is a reference to the two proposals the Russians made about no eastward extension of NATO to include Ukraine and no deployment of advanced weapon systems into Ukraine. Now, Putin said there are certain signals they've been getting that this is possible. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov said that there are discussions underway that will escalate in the beginning of the new year. But keep in mind that a top U.S. official yesterday said, or 2 days ago said, that the window closes in 4 weeks. That is, there's a very short period of time for this agreement, for some kind of diplomatic settlement to be reached. Now, at the same time, there's just a growing evidence of a British hand in this. For example, the former Deputy Chief of Britain's Defense Staff, General Sir Gordon Messenger, is now a special defense advisor to Ukraine's military. There are reports of British role in upgrading the Ukrainian Navy, including with new naval bases being constructed, and training Ukraine's armed forces. And December 8th was the first UK-Ukraine strategic dialogue. What was the first thing on the topic? First issue on the topic of discussion? Combating Russia. Keep in mind that the British geostrategic doctrine is based on the idea of allowing no alliance between Eurasian powers and Central European governments. And what that means is, at all costs, Russia and China have to be kept out of alliances with nations of Europe. Now, in the meantime, what's going on in Europe? It's a disaster. You have inflation. You have farmers being driven off the land. You have fertilizer prices soaring because of the inflation of energy costs. The basic point is Europe is bracing for a cold, dark winter. Let me just give you some specifics. The first day of winter, electricity prices in Germany jumped from 298 euros per megawatt hour to 620 euros per megawatt hour. This was, of course, based on short-term speculation. But these jumps, which have been consistent, translate to a significant increase in household and manufacturing and business energy costs. The household energy price jump was almost 40% in November in Germany. Keep in mind, at the end of next year, Germany will close its last nuclear plants. At the same time, electricity in Germany, because of the Green New Deal policy, because of the inflation policy, the electricity use from coal and gas are up, in spite of the agreements for the Green New Deal, and the share from renewables has dropped. Why is that? Well, there's not much wind and there's almost no sun. In fact, yesterday there was no electricity from solar plants throughout Europe. A large German provider named Stromio is on the verge of shutting down, and there are reports that this will hit hundreds of thousands of homes, which will have to scramble to find new providers. Also in Germany, the exact figure is coal use is up so far this month 18%, wind is down 12%, and nuclear, which will soon be shut down completely, has been up 7%. Now, in France, you have problems from the shutdown of 4 nuclear plants, I think for repair. But these are nuclear plants that provide 10% of the overall nuclear supply of French electricity. To respond to that, they had to activate 6 oil plants, and they're importing energy. So you have a situation in Europe where even before the full implementation of Green New Deal policies, we can see that because of increased prices and lack of supply, that a tremendous crisis is about to hit. And most German families are not even aware of this. Most people seem to think that everything's okay, it's a little more costly. The new government's coming in, they're going to wait and see what's going to happen. They don't see, because of the cloud of uncertainty and lies that have descended upon them, the fog of lies from the media, that they face a tremendous strategic crisis, because a war in Ukraine will not leave Germany unscathed. In fact, it will have a profound effect very quickly, especially if German troops and German equipment is involved in the war against Russia over Ukraine. Germany becomes the number one target. And making sure it's a number one target are the idiotic pronouncements coming from the government, especially from Foreign Minister Baerbock, who is rattling swords and sabers and threatening the Russians, standing side by side with NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg. So this is a real crisis of civilization. I'm focusing on Germany now. I could talk about Afghanistan. I could talk about the instability that's been introduced in South Asia as a result of the extension of NATO, the Quad, the AUKUS agreement, and so on. The world is teetering, and behind the military bluff is a collapse of the financial system. That's their vulnerability, and there is an alternative. The alternative is Lyndon LaRouche's proposals for enacting banking regulation which will put the bankrupt financial system into reorganization, into bankruptcy, take power away from the private banks who act from the Federal Reserve and the central banks, and put it back into a national banking system of Hamiltonian credit, which means that credit goes to producers, not to speculators. It means that we do not bail out the speculators. We don't allow banks to steal their depositors' money through bail-ins. Instead, we have a national, in each nation, a sovereign credit agency which generates credit for real production, which is the only way you increase the wealth of a society, through physical goods production. Instead, we're heading toward shortages of all basic commodities, of rising prices that are hyperinflationary, and a threat of war. Now, that's not a very nice picture to take with you to your Christmas Eve celebrations. But the basic point is we do have a better way, and it's going to be up to you to join with us, the Schiller Institute, the LaRouche Organization, to mobilize to put the war hawks' money machine into bankruptcy, shut them down, and enact a new credit policy which allows for jobs, for a world health system, clean water for every country, electricity in abundance. All of this is possible. We need the vision to look outside the media bubble and the courage to act on this program. Now with that, I wish you a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you next week.